morning. There we go. Okay, so I don't know. Sorry, I'm gonna have a couple beeps. Apparently, I have to redo something. My video capture. All right, there it is. All right, so we have basically what's going on in the world today. Um, okay. I guess the microphone. Yeah, I'll look at what's happening in the Middle East. I'll look at what's happening in. I better double check my microphone. Um, yeah, there it is. Okay, I'll look at what's happening in the Middle East. I'll look at what's happening in Africa, the Ukraine offensive, and then definitely, well, basically the Canadian Parliament. So that's about it. So basically, I'm gonna be looking over here, and a little bit at you, but basically, that is what I'm looking at today. So we have a map here. Let's move me. So here's the proxies map, and then the African basically insurgency map. The insurgency map. That's what I have here, and there's a couple other. I'll periodically switch them around as we're going, as we're looking at this. So what first here? Okay, so the here I'm just gonna IDF. IDF and ISA conduct counterterrorism activities. These are the news releases coming out of the IDF. This is straight from their site. So IDF and ISA conduct counterterrorism activities against Hamas in Judea and Samaria. So following wild-scale terrorism activity overnight in Judea and Samaria, over 80 wanted suspects were apprehended. Okay, so how's the volume? Is the volume good? Yeah, a little bit redlining. So that's the stage Judea and Samaria. They included suspects were apprehended, including 63 Hamas terrorist operatives. The forces demolished the residence of Hamas terrorists in the town of Kibaya and apprehended a number of wanted suspects in the Nur Shams camp. Ooh. So IDF and ISA Israel Border Police, so the ISA and Israel Border Police conducted counterterrorism activities in numerous locations in Judea and Samaria and apprehended over 80 wanted individuals suspected of involvement in terrorist activities, 63 of whom are Hamas terror operatives. In addition, a large number of weapons were confiscated. So it's there were reports because they got a bunch of these flyers about how to take care of hostages, and it was horrible. You do not, if you really, you can look. There's been a little bit of it's been leaked online, and another part of the plan was they thought that they would have little pockets all over Israel for quite some time. That didn't last very long, but that was the plan. It didn't happen that way. They ended up bringing them back. In addition, security forces operated in the town of Kibaya to demolish the residence of Ahmed Yassin Jidan, the terrorist who carried out the shooting attack adjacent to a condominium in which IDF soldiers, Staff Sergeant Shiloh Yosef Amr, was killed. During the activity, suspects hurled rocks at the forces who responded with riot disposal means. During the force's activity to demolish the terrorist residence, a violent riot was instigated in the town of Burdos. Approximately 20 suspects who hurled Molotov cocktails and other subjects at the forces. In addition, suspects blocked routes with burning tires and trash cans and basically writes while they destroyed it. So 524 wanted suspects have been apprehended across Judea and Samaria and the Jordan Valley since the 7th. So 524 have been arrested. 330 of them were operatives of Hamas. 50 weapons have been confiscated. So that's the IDF. IDF reporting, and then terrorist infrastructures destroyed, and they caught a senior terrorist. So the terrorist infrastructure is destroyed, and senior terrorist operatives neutralized, including the head of PRC military branch. So the IDF destroyed terrorist infrastructure, and the Gaza Strip and neutralized senior operatives of different terrorist organizations, including the head of military branch popular resistance committees in Rafah. So in Rafah, you know that the crossing to go to Egypt, it's blocked. We don't know what's really going on there, but Egypt doesn't want to take in immigrants or anyone from that area. So, but there is food aid. Apparently is going through a little bit. I think the one corner um, should be used for UN. There should be something going on with some kind of resolution within the next few weeks, but. The IDF continues to strike the Gaza Strip. During the last day, the IDF struck hundreds of Hamas terror structures, including dozens in Shujaia. Shujaia. The structures included anti-tank missiles, launching posts, terror tunnel drafts, intelligence infrastructure, and additional command centers. Dozens of mortar launchers were also struck, the majority of which were destroyed immediately after launching shells at Israel. So it seems that they have them all honed in. Any attack, they're a lot more prepared to counter. During the fighting, numerous Hamas terror operatives belonging to Nukba forces, NUKBHA forces, who led the barbaric invasion of the communities surrounding the Gaza Strip, were targeted. More than 10 terrorists were targeted in a precision aerial strike. The IDF jets based on ISA intelligence struck the head of the military branch of the Popular Resistance Committees, the terror organization Rafah, and Rafat Harb Hussein Abu Khilal. There's a video of the strikes. I'll pull it up for you. Just give me a second here. Yeah, these were the day. Just give me a second. I will pop it up for you for the only one person here. But there's more. Give me a minute. So how are you this evening? It's 4:28 in Niagara Falls. All right, getting closer. We're getting closer to the video. We can. Yeah. All right. A little bit. All right. So here's a nice IDF video. Well, I don't want to say nice. So this is what happened yesterday. The footage from all the buildings that were taken out yesterday. Yeah, so quite a few strikes, and these are all in Gaza. These buildings that were hit. We'll hit it one more time. It's just 30 seconds. So it's six targets. You can see them all there. Just completely demolished these buildings. Just 2, 3. It's still standing, that one. 4, 5. And that's the 6th building. And look at the explosion that happened, the fire explosion. Oh my goodness. So 7, a couple different angles. So that's what the IDF yesterday. Um, that's what happened yesterday. And okay, so there's that. That was the deal with that there. Um, so there's IDF. Now we have breaking news out of the Times of Israel. I like to go to the Times of Israel. They have very big incentive to keep on it, right? They're the most incentive. So it's the city of Kiryat Shmona to start being evacuated amid growing northern tension. So it's $6 a month for the Times of Israel. So if you're interested, I think it's a good paper to read right now. 2 rockets land in Sderot, causing no casualties. So this is just breaking 15 minutes ago, 31 minutes ago. Israel approves emergency regulations that could pave the way to closing Al Jazeera offices. So Al Jazeera is a news article out of Qatar, and Qatar has the Hamas leadership there. Um, Qatar was also involved in European Union with bribing this woman who was showing up. Like, they totally was obvious. She was showing up at committees she wasn't supposed to, and she was very high in the EU Parliament, right? She had a lot of power, and she was showing up at all these committees for Qatar, and then she got caught. She's being investigated. She's removed. Uh, so Al Jazeera is out of that country, and they've been very biased in the reporting um, of late. So police said to arrest Palestinian Hamas supporter who planned to ram West Bank troops. Rocket signs blare in Israel and communities near Gaza after 11-hour lull. So there's 11-hour lull, and now there's more rockets. That's within the last hour. Biden gave a speech yesterday. I think it was pretty good. And like Fox is saying, well, he's coming in late, but he went to Palestine. I was really surprised that he went there. It really was. That you know he didn't have to go in any shape, way, or form, but he did. And yeah, and then and all the Arab nations snubbed him, which this definitely will come up in the Pentagon report that when I look at today. But a ship intercepted missiles that were coming out of Yemen yesterday, and they think that these missiles were headed for Israel. They were intercepted by a ship, so by a U.S. ship. So that's definitely another issue. The UN chief calls for sustained humanitarian access to Gaza as the trucks are set to roll in. So he's been asking for that, and that happened. U.S. Intel, European source, put Gaza hospital death toll at dozens. So it looks like dozens of people, and it wasn't the thing. So that's that. Have another look at. Here, I'll put this on 32 seconds. The that was like that was just this is just yesterday. So these large buildings, there's going to be a lot of uh, construction going to be required in these areas. Like very large, and buildings owned by, they're saying, these terrorist groups, and they're using that infrastructure. Just okay. So the CEO Forum Group. I'm not going to put that on. What I am going to do, though, is check out. Oh, Middle East. Princeton. Princeton has a crisis in the Middle East um, paper out. October 6th. What is this? Um, yeah, that isn't really on it. Now, here's another one, the G mantle. It's great. Here, I'm gonna put up a video for you guys. Be back in a flash. Check out this unit.
The focus of the course is to give the volunteers to the Armed Forces of Ukraine the skills and principles to survive, fight and win. So we very much focus on basic skills and principles that the trainees can adapt to survive and fight, focusing on marksmanship principles, force protection, offensive and defensive operations in both rural and urban environments. So as well as focusing on the relevance of the course, we also focus on the realism and immersing the trainees in those realistic battlefield scenarios to help them to understand the effects that has on them mentally and indeed physically, and also to prepare them for the battlefield that they'll go back to, minimizing or reducing the amount of time they might hesitate, allowing them to apply the skills and principles we've given them in stressful battlefield environments. The course aims to teach them to be lethal infantry soldiers. So, as I said, the skills and principles are really important, so they understand their role as a soldier on the battlefield and how to fit into larger units. A real focus of the course is fighting ethically, law of armed conflict, and how to fight war ethically is incredibly important. We teach that and reinforce it. And I think also fundamentally, what I hope we give the soldiers is that confidence in those skills and principles. As I've said, they're incredibly well motivated, they have a huge offensive spirit, and we aim to give them those skills and principles and the confidence to go back and fight for Ukraine. So from my personal experience, I think it demonstrates the shared values that nations in NATO and NATO partners have, both in the support to Ukraine and the way we conduct our training. But at a fundamentally more tactical level, it shows that the ability we have to integrate conceptually and physically in terms of the equipment, delivering of the training, and just working together. Those relationships that we've built within our training delivery unit are built on years of working and operating together in other operational environments.
Ministers, if I can ask you to look straight ahead for 8 seconds. Thank you very much.
And then when you take the corner, you need to be fast in case there's enemy on the other. Like this. And use the wall as a natural cover.
Ива користовує.
4000, 3000, 2000, одна, путь!
Путь. Дивіться. Тримайте.
Я просто не мог пальцем знайти.
I could find the... Цю штуку дуже мало тримаєте. Треба чуть довше. Ти що йдеш?
Have to take off the safety.
Спочатку маєте за...
Hit.
Was that exciting for you as it was for me? All right. Woo. Here, let me adjust this camera. So basically, what am I doing this morning? So this is what we're doing is running through my morning. This is my morning, I don't know, you want to call it checkup. The morning world checkup I do anyway, right? I'm gonna have to move this a little bit. Okay, so this is my morning it's morning rounds. This is the morning rounds I do. I check all the put the keys in the lock, check at all the places, and see what's happening. And I've been doing this for 4 years now. This is basically, he can't afford a university. Hey, there's Google, open source, and I feel like I'm like and like a scared nanny. I'm like, the world is going to since before COVID. I was doing this, right, and like the world has been going crazy, and it's going over the deep end. And it seems that every politician that we have is all trying to tell us it's all right, and they're not doing much to alleviate the concerns of first of all the working class, which was the middle class, and I'm trying to set the alarms. And all we have to, in my opinion, is start getting more people watching what's going on in the politics, because our politicians are only worried about the wealthy class at the moment. I just see this everywhere, and everywhere we're losing. Governor Huckabee from Arkansas is the first governor. The governors, I guess, two governors, of course, DeSantis as well. They seem to be the only ones that are making wins on what I see as this losing. Like everywhere since I grew up in Niagara, all the factories have been leaving and everything like that. You had to leave for work unless you had wealthy family, right? And or connections and stuff like that, right? It wasn't as good for working class. And then now the housing prices in our area, like we're looking at like $600,000 for like the cheaper homes, for homes that were like 10 years ago, 30,000. You're like, okay, we'll say they were 60,000 that long ago, and that's it. It's just basically when you're wealthy, your assets going up, and it's just gone too high. So too many people think that they're in the inn because they made their bank off of doing nothing. It's a big problem. It's a very big problem. You have to have income through doing something, or else many civilizations have fallen this exact way, and we're doing it the same thing. You have to do something for that money, or else I'm just saying about history. So I'm just a plumber, and it's like, why am I the only one seeing this? Well, I think we have a feeling is that it's willful blindness, in my opinion, is that's what's happening. We have basically, because who's going to pick up the slack in the military and stuff? It ain't going to be the wealthy kids. No, it's going to be the kids of the working class that are going to go and bleed for this country, and our politicians aren't helping them right now. And who are they going to ask to get them out of the jam that they're putting us in? That's the biggest thing. That's why it has to be dealt with now. And we have another one, this plutocracy that's been growing. When you have like the largest investor in the world that's calling it, Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is saying that we have a plutocracy. Well, we do then. You can't. He's not in power. He's an investor, and he's saying I'm investing outside of the country because of the plutocracy in America. In Canada, it's a monopoly of everything, and the government is helping the monopolies. It's not helping, like merger this and that, and then the smaller media outlets are getting hit by this. This is basically everywhere I turn. It's just another hit for the little guy. Okay, the governor from Arkansas is doing a couple good things. Huckabee. She basically said, if you're a CCP company, you must divest investment in our farmland. You can't own farmland if you're a CCP-owned company. And second, you can't have the seed. There's a seed company there. They had said they're being too nice, in my opinion. They said they have 2 years to divest from this company, 2 years. And it's a seed bank company in Arkansas, very, very high tech. And they're basically, we know China has been out here stealing our technology and taking it there for a long time, and then making it there and then selling it back to us. And we've had governments doing nothing for a long time, just a little bit of talk, really not much being done about it, And I blame all of them. There's not one of them. Yes, a couple of them been saying a little bit more, but they need to be egged on by the working class. Because the people that they're talking to, the business class that mostly get in the room with our politicians, they don't care. They don't care about it, and they don't see it. And like I said, who's going to help them when we get stuck in the jam? When it gets really, it's going to be the working class that bails it out, and that's the problem. They're the ones that get kicked on the way down, and they get kicked on the way up. It's just needs to be addressed. That's all. That's all we got to do is address it. And have someone addressing it, but it isn't going to happen. The small Mickey Mouse people like us, it gets dialed down. You get kicked to Rumble. I got sent down to, they arbitrarily kicked my account off. No strikes, no nothing. They just said no value, and they kicked me off. They said you're no value anymore. So I'm going up, and all the other ones, they don't see as much as going on. They're more hyperbolic, and this is what we got. This is my gripe for the morning. But so basically, I figure, hey, let's take everybody on my little morning journey of what reports I'm checking out at the moment. There's a bunch of others I check out also, but these ones are the ones. Comment on the side there. I have a sip of coffee here. Oh yeah. Don't tell my bishop I'm drinking coffee at 4 in the morning. Oh, coffee. Mm. Oh, so there's this coffee, man. There's expression that I had as a kid, and it was pick your poison. Okay, and I never understood it, but I really liked the bottle that had that on the expression as a kid. I was like, oh, I really like that skull in it, and now I realize what it is. We all have. Um, Sometimes you just want to like screw the world. I'm doing what I want, right? And I used to be like, well, screw the world. I'm gonna go party and or drink and this and that. I don't drink and we'll be on 2 beers, like or any of that anymore. Um, Cannabis on occasion, but that's more so when I need to de-stress, a little bit of energy. But really, what I do now, my poison is what I feel guilt on doing is drinking coffee. That's my poison. When I'm like, screw you, I'm drinking a coffee, and and that is my poison now. So and I'll tell you, I get that relief of like, oh, good, I told the world where to go, and it's just coffee. So picking your poison, I used to have a lot of darker poisons. And when I was a teenager, I used to be going to get scrap on Friday night. That was what we did in the '90s, right? That was, you know, you go to the party, you get all rowdy. But now the picking of the poison is just, and I'll tell you, it's the same thing, the same kind of relief as doing worse things. It's just you choose to pick your poison, and you bring yourself to whatever level at. Now, for Mitt Romney, it's having a glass of milk. Like he's like, oh, that's it. I'm bad. I'm gonna have a glass of milk, right? And for him, when he drinks his milk, it's like, oh, I'm doing something bad, and he gets that relief. So anyway, this is something that I learned. It's actually true, in my opinion. You can pick your poison and make sure that the poison you pick isn't as bad, isn't deadly. Well, they're all deadly, right? Some people's poison, you can see it. They're walking around. Mine, look at them. I talk, 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 talk. Obviously, my poison right now is coffee or cocaine, but it's coffee. Other people, they're walking around, they're like, yeah, their poison is chippies or candy, right? There's a lot of people like that right now, but that's a poison that they've chosen, right? And then you can tell the person who's very out of it, they're like, well, they're hard drug poison, right? Um, we all have a poison that we take. It's just what is it? And I think that we're all. I don't think I've seen anybody who doesn't have a poison. That's just my thought of that. Okay. Looking at the Harvard Center, see if they have something new. October 9th. Oh, we got something. Um. All right. So we have this is analysis and opinions from the Harvard Kennedy School, the Belfer Center. Should the U.S. continue to provide the substantial level of military assistance to Ukraine that it has over the past 18 months? So the background, how long is this? Oh my goodness. All right, this is like agree, disagree. Okay. So Russia's full-scale invasion has pushed the United States' substantial level of military assistance to Ukraine over the past 18 months to the forefront. And international, here I'll put up a different map for you. I'll put up the Ukraine map because that's what we're looking at. There. There we go. We got the Ukraine map. And okay, this is the Harvard Kennedy Center. Belfer Center, sorry, Kennedy School. While some question the assistance altogether, many ask whether or not Europe should be stepping up to do more. Others fear the United States has made an open-ended commitment to Ukraine and are skeptical of the role the U.S. should be playing in guaranteeing European security. All right. 2 teams of 4 students each debate the weekly topic. So we got for and against here. Jewish tragic case for Pax Americana. United States, okay, so the people that agree, United States needs to uphold international law and continue to support Ukraine at a substantive level as it aligns with historic access of Pax Americana, which helped us usher peace and security to the world since 1945. Through the creation of strategic alliances, both trade and international development alliances, other nations have made with Russia, however, resulted in reduced freedoms, human rights violations, poor economic performance, and political instability, all of which make the comparative success of democratic alliances important. Thanks to Pax Americana, the U.S. has put an end to the great power loop seen through much of the 20th century and has successfully maintained its global influence and position in the international arena. Now everyone's saying there's been a decline in America. Yeah, because the banks of Canada and America decided, hey, we can make a larger percentage by investing outside this country. The factories of the future of today, really, were packed up and sold out of North America and sold to basically China and Mexico and stuff like that. And the money is shipping out, and now we've hollowed out a middle class, and now they're like, well, we're weakened. No shit. And it can be reversed, but it has to be reversed towards the middle class, not just giving more money to investment class. This is what's happening right now. They've realized, well, we sold everything out from below you, middle class, but don't worry, we'll help the investors invest right back into you. Yeah. It's we need a change of politicians, a large change of politicians that realize that they really screwed up. They screwed up the world by thinking, hey, let's trade with China. The world will get nicer. It didn't get nicer. If you look around, it's a hell of a lot worse. They made a huge mistake everywhere. Freedoms in our own country are getting eroded because of trade that we decided to give to the CCP before they came to be nice with us. And look, people are still on this mode. They're like, why? I want a ceasefire. No, there's never going to be a ceasefire. Hamas has declared that they want to kill every Jew in the world. Okay? They want to kill every Jew in the world. Okay, they got that on paper. So this dumbly, the Israelis were doing deals with them. And then what do they do? 1,300 were massacred in the worst horrible way. And now that Israel's woken up, we made a really stupid idea with even thinking it's possible to do a deal with people that have called for you to be dead. So there's anyone who wants to be dead. There's nothing but these eyes for you. This idea that, oh, it's okay, they just say it. If you give them the means, they will use it on you. So if they declare it, there's this expression that the people have been saying way too much. Listen to their deeds, not their words. Well, listen to their words first, because the deeds are coming after. And if they're declaring that every Jew must die, well, there you go, for past. It's just unbelievable. So now people have still not woken up. Well, maybe we made some mistakes. Well, you have. You have made major mistakes. You cannot deal with them at all. Make any deals with a group that wants you dead. And it's just like Netanyahu said. He's like, well, they've declared to cut my head off. He goes, what kind of negotiation do you want me to do with them? How they're going to cut my head off? That's the only negotiation they'll have with me. Is the manner of which they're going to cut my head off. Flock off. This university world of, we'll just talk it. Some people, once you've declared something, there's no negotiating with, and it's only made more problems in the world. So now they want to cease. NDP's like, we'll cease fire. It ain't gonna happen. They have to eliminate this group entirety, and maybe someone, and only allow someone who's not putting in their charter that every Jew in the world must die. If no neighbor you can't have a neighbor that declares your death anywhere in the world. And they have, and if you have the might, you have to stop it. And we've appeasement has not worked, and trading with China has not brought them closer to us. All of these ideas have been debunked completely, and hey, we've all have stupid ideas. I had an idea. I thought that the party scene was where it's at. Frick, was I wrong? It's not. Wasn't even me. I even had to pretend I was someone else. That's fine. I totally, and it's okay that people thought, well, hey, they had a good-natured heart, and now they were wrong, and now it's time to prove that you're wrong instead of yelling at the Karens and the Kevins of Canada, that are like, I think you guys made a mistake, and they're like yelling, no, you're wrong. Queers for Palestine, queers for Hamas, queers for Hamas. You're a fucking idiot. Pardon my French, but it's really disgusting, the stupidity. You go live under the Hamas rule if you're a queer. They'll actually kill you. They'll kill you. You can't. So you have to only do deals with people who are at least willing to say things that are wholesome. We will work for peace. That should be in their charter. But that's not in the charter. So we call for a ceasefire for someone who wants to. No, it ain't happening. They've done it. They did what they wanted to do. Hamas. Now they're over. But this political class is just completely awful, and everyone sees it. Universities, males have stopped. Like, males aren't going to university anymore, and we know why, because the guys are looking at it like it's a joke. Your education system's a joke. Only the convinced are still going, and the ones that are going into STEM. STEM is still, STEM's, So the Pax, this is a disagreement. The Pax Americana requires that the United States will be able to concentrate the entire world, not just one single country like UK. And John F. Kennedy famously stated that the kind of peace that the world needs is not a Pax Americana enforced on the world by American weapons of war, not the peace of the grave or the security of the slave. I am talking about genuine peace, the kind of peace that makes life on earth worth living, the kind that enables men of nations to grow and hope and build a better life for their children. Not merely a peace for Americans, but peace for all men and women. Not merely peace and time for all, so the United States cannot fiscally afford to pursue a policy of Pax Americana whose strategic aims are too vague in the long term. Okay, so they're saying we don't have the money to. So this is the idea. We don't have the money. Do you have any? People don't have any idea how much more it's going to cost by allowing these things, because you're going to have to eventually deal with it, because it happened before. They don't stop when you have an aggressor. They haven't, and the ones that we have in the world, they don't stop unless they're stopped. That's just how the case is, and we need to do something for it. And I don't mean like how all has to be military solutions at all, but it needs to be spoken about. They're like, hey, Jana, what you're doing to the Uyghurs, we can't do trade with you because of that. We can't. I'm sorry, we have to pull back our trade until you fix this. That's how I believe it should. Instead of putting all of our money into it, and now what's happening? They're putting their influence on our shores, and we're losing our freedoms, our hard blood dripped freedoms, because we had a plan that didn't work. I have a sip of coffee. It's just class dealing with it. They just shut down people's speech. They're like, no, we don't want you to talk. Like this channel, whatever. It's though the wave that hits the break wall eventually breaks the wall. And there is a point. I believe that they do have a point, that they've spent a lot of money, that European defense is American defense, but there is NATO. Europe seems not to be doing their contribution to what's happening in Europe as much as they should. America shouldn't be, the only one. Well, they're all doing it. Okay, so U.S. assistance. This is European defense is American defense. Those that agree. U.S. assistance to Ukraine is critical because helping to defend Ukraine allows the U.S. to, in turn, defend Europe and NATO, which is in the interest of U.S. national security. While the U.S. may not have a treaty obligation to protect Ukraine, it does have such an obligation to keep NATO safe. Due to the proximity of the war and the risk of collateral damage to NATO members, the United States needs to assume a proactive approach to reduce the risk of an attack on NATO members by strengthening Ukraine's defense capabilities. Therefore, it is imperative that the U.S. continue to provide substantial levels of assistance to the Ukraine. You know, moral obligations and supply chain limitations. That's a big one. There are general. They agree. There are concerns as to whether or not the Europeans are genuinely up for the task of burden sharing and whether or not Europe has the ability to ramp up support for Ukraine, given the limitations of its weapon industry and supply chains. And that's been proven. Germany was trying to up it, and then they pulled back. Okay, domestic political divisions. There's a strong U.S. public support for aid to Ukraine, and it is important that the U.S. government actions represent these opinions as well. Equally as important, the U.S. can hold space for both domestic and international strategic priorities, and to suggest otherwise is a strategic mistake that could cost the U.S. in the long run. Additionally, given the current state of U.S. politics, it is important to seize any opportunity to provide a substantial assistance package, and there is no guarantee of the political will later on. Basically, everywhere we go, it's we're losing. We're losing in every battlefield. The West is losing, and why is that when they're not? Now I wanted to check to see. Yeah, so the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and the Palestinian Liberation Front, they're both considered terrorist groups. Some of the Proud Boys are on the list. I never really followed them, but I'm surprised that they're on the list. I don't think they were violent, but I didn't follow. I didn't do that. Wasn't really following that September, whatever that riot, whatever. Um, oh, just looking at something here. Give me a second here. This is just Iran's calculations in the Israel war. As the war rages on between Israel, Hamas, and Gaza, the role of Iran will remain a central factor. Tehran is not only Israel's top regional foe, but is also the leading provider of military aid and training for Hamas. Given the centrality of Iran in this latest Middle Eastern war, that is Tehran's endgame, based on Iranian statements since Hamas' deadly attack on September 7th, that endgame does not seem to be set in stone. As with all stakeholders in this war, Tehran's calculations are evolving and shaped by events on the ground in Gaza. So that's what they're saying. But two basic realities are clear. Iran has no intention of directly engaging militarily in the war against Israel or the U.S. should Washington decide to get involved. Doing so would simply be too risky for the Islamic Republic and its 84-year-old supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, whose regime's scaffolding has been shaky in recent years. Instead, Tehran sees this moment as a golden opportunity to vindicate its vision for the region based on the concept of axis of resistance. This, in turn, is plain repudiation of the Abraham Accords and the idea of Israel's integration into the fabric of the Middle East. The U.S. and the West in general can do much inadvertently advance Iran's agenda. can do much to inadvertently advance Iran's agenda if they fail to mediate the Israel-Hamas conflict in a way that takes into account the demands of the Arab and Muslim publics. To put it mildly, the concept of the Abraham Accords is on the line, and no one wants to see the demise more than the Islamic Republic. So the Abraham Accords, Morocco, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Iran were just about to get, cozy, and well, that's been put on hold. And Biden basically said, after September 11th, America, we went nuts, is basically how he said it. And he urged Israel not to go nuts. So basically he's, in line with what this person who wrote it, Alex Ventenka. Alex wrote this. What Iran wants and cannot afford. On October 17th, Ali Khamenei sat on stage and commented on the war. Behind him were posters and pictures of 7 Iranian nuclear scientists assassinated beginning in 2010. Tehran has always blamed Israel for the assassinations and other acts of sabotage on Iranian soil. The choreography was hardly coincidental. So Khamenei's message, at least to the Iranian public, was that Iran, to their public, through its backing of Hamas over the years, had hit back at Israel. It was partly to claim successful revenge and partly to remind Israel that Iran can retaliate for the death of these scientists. Was this Khamenei's way of telling Israel that the two foes need to rethink boundaries of their decades-long shadow war? The new red lines need to be established. That might be here. Let's put up a new map. Yeah, so I'm missing my one paper. So he did this thing. Meanwhile, since October 7th attacks, Khamenei has also gone out of his way to repeatedly deny a direct Iranian role. So that, proves that they don't want to be in there themselves. They just want the proxies to be in. They got all kinds of money. They've been selling their oil, and this is what they do with their money. He might question American calculations in regards of the Middle East and probably doubts Washington's appetite to enter the fray in the Gaza war. But Khamenei does not underestimate the might of the U.S. military once it is unleashed. So he is definitely scareful. But this is what they do. They talk Iranian, they talk a big bluster, but really the American might is big. And now they can say, oh, Biden is old and he's feeble. But the people that work for Biden, the military, that like American military, is still not to be messed with. Just because they've been shelved and beaten and they're having troubles, recruiting and all this stuff, it's still okay. Excuse me. Would Khamenei want to see the U.S. dragged into a new, costly, and open-ended war in this region? This is very plausible, and probably a yearning he shares with Russia, China, and other American rivals. But none of those other states are close or as close to Hamas as Iran is. The Islamic Republic's tiny space for deniability makes it improbable that it would want to risk its own political survival merely to aid Hamas in a broader war that involves the U.S. After all of Iran's investments in the so-called axis of resistance and the military doctrine of forward defense rest on a simple idea that Iran is better off fighting its adversaries outside of its borders through a pro-Iran militant proxies and not on its own soil. even Iran's willingness to risk the survival of its cherished axis of resistance has been put into question. Has to be questioned. Oops. Not only does Iran seem disinclined to enter the war, it is also disinclined to risk the future of Hezbollah, the crown jewel among its Arab proxies. This should not be a surprise. Iran's anti-Israel agenda is a long-term game plan meant to weaken Israel militarily, diplomatically, and psychologically over years and perhaps even decades to come. So that's what they're saying. They're saying they're not letting Hezbollah get in there because they're worried that it'll be gone, it'll be wiped out. And that's their crown jewel of proxy armies, militaries. So back in 2015, Khomeini predicted that Israel would disappear in 25 years. So you think about it. They had in the 15. So they're saying it's going to be so around 2040. Khomeini will not be around in 2040 to find out if his prediction came true. But there is no evidence that he will risk his regime and that much anticipated success and process in Tehran. By entangling Iran in a direct military contact that will invariably throw up surprises, it will not be ready. It will not be ready to tackle both at home and in the region. Instead, Khomeini can simply claim the October 17th attack as a strategic win against Israel, and the moment when the region reach an inflection point. So this is what he's doing. He's basically taking credit for it, but they're not risking. They think they basically think that Biden is a wimp and won't go into Iran because he's scared of Iran. And so they're acting on it. And they think, well, they're not going to come after Hezbollah, and if they do, they're not going to come after us. So let's keep Hezbollah back as much as possible, but also claim credit for a little bit of bluster. This is well, we'll see what Biden does. I don't know. Iran's proxy allies will likely take pot shots at Israel. That's what they're doing right now. They're just taking pot shots and just back and forth a little bit. But Israel seems very determined to on the Gaza Strip. It's very determined and it's focused very much on that. And obviously they're on their defense on the other side. But it seems that the Gaza Strip is going first. Is going. And wherever else is just a defensive position, posture. So they're going to take, pot shots at Israel and the U.S. forces from Lebanon, Syria, or Iraq. But Tehran will refrain from risking the future of its axis of resistance, including Hezbollah's reported arsenal of 150,000 missiles and rockets. That's a lot of rockets aimed at Israel. Iran will let loose its proxy forces only if the U.S. attacks the Iranian homeland, which is hardly in the cards at the moment. In fact, Tehran will at most, through Hezbollah, limited strikes on Israel in the north, attempt to shape Israel's calculations and convince it not to go for a kill against Hamas. That's what I think they're trying to do. That's what he says. Alex is saying they're trying to do. In the long run, Iran wants to keep Hamas in Gaza as part of Tehran's strategy of encircling Israel, right? And basically Netanyahu, he isn't far enough right anymore. They were saying 2 weeks ago that he was far right. Now he's not far enough right, and the populace is saying no more Hamas. Hamas is gone, and that is a big deal to Iran because they want to encircle them. So what they're saying, or people are saying, is that they're only going to use Hezbollah just to keep the Hamas alive a little bit, but it's just another pawn that can be lost, right? So, and then Hezbollah is a crown jewel. It's like the bishop on the thing, but still, it's not Iran. These are all proxy. And then these rockets that were shot out of Yemen, that's news. In the case of already, Tehran's energies will now be focused on diplomatic arena in the region and globally. Iran will use the war in Gaza not only to vindicate the concept of axis of resistance, but also to put pressure on those Arab states that have or are exploring the idea of normalization relations with Israel. So that's the Abraham Accords, which have been just such a great success. Actual peace in the Middle East was beginning, and Iran is doing everything to put an end to it. They just don't want the peace. Excuse me. Tehran also is so keen on the objective that last week Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi took the unusual steps of calling Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. So he called him. The basic fault line is hard to miss. Iran's game plan is to pull the moderate Arab states away from the U.S. and Israel, while the Americans are doing the exact opposite, although with mixed results and best so far. It is mixed results, but it's starting. Under Trump, it's been going in that direction of at least somewhat peace, and now we're getting a retract because of this awful attack on the people. And like Biden said, exercise restraint would be his best thing to do, though you don't want to. It's gonna, like everyone's saying, it's just gonna have to take longer. Finally, as reported in the Iranian sources, Americans have warned Iran not to miscalculate on two fronts, which might result in U.S. military action. First, Tehran should avoid any direct military assistance to Hamas during this war. Second, Tehran should not see the war as a cover to expand its nuclear program. The Biden administration is very sensitive to the charge that it has been soft on Iran. This basic reality will shape the President Joe Biden's Iran policy in the coming weeks and months, and Tehran will be careful not to make Biden's case for the need for a more forceful American posture towards the Islamic Republic. So, yeah. He's basically saying, hey, like, Iran is worried, and Biden has been pushed. They were being very nice and soft to them, Obama, and Biden wasn't as much so under Blinken, whatever, but they were very nice, and this is what happened. Like, their proxy armies do an attack on allies that are making deals. This is, it's like a game changer. It's like saying, I know we're enemies, but here's some peace offering, and then they grabbed the peace offering, smashed it in your face, and kicked your ally. This is on the global level. The war in Gaza comes as Russia and China seek to dislodge the U.S. as the hegemon in the Middle East. They will, together with Iran and its allies, question the credibility and competence of Washington as a power broker and mediator. The U.S. will be presented as a source of instability, and Russia and China will promote themselves as neutral arbitrators in the Middle East and looks for political solutions to the war. As the Chinese Foreign Minister Yang Yi put it, lack of justice for the Palestinian people is at the heart of this conflict. I think appeasement is the heart of this judgment by allowing someone who says they want to cut your head off and then doing a negotiation with them. Silly, just silly. These are like such lofty ideas that they do work with reasonable people, but you're not dealing with a reasonable person who's saying they want to cut someone's head off that they don't even know, right? Because of past injustices or what? It's since October 7th, Moscow and Beijing, both of which have been close ties with Israel, have decided to remain mostly silent or express pro-Palestinian sentiment. Because who's behind this? This is not due to an anti-Israel stance as such. It is simply an opportunistic move by Russia and China to use the moment to show that U.S. policies in the Middle East have failed. And what the third-party stakeholders, Iran, the U.S., Europeans, Russia, and China, would disagree is that October 7th attacks within Israel's borders have upended the decades-old status quo and rules of engagement. Of course, everyone agrees with that. I believe the Hamas must no longer be they can no longer be a political entity. And I wish the UN would get their ass together and have a peace stabilization force in there, cambered up to the hilt, putting the bottom, but it isn't. The UN has become a pretty much useless organization. It's become so weakened by basically America pulling out of it and China putting into it. It's just corrupt. It's just disgusting. It's really disgusting. It's a very useless organization that is really good at wagging the finger at like Canada and zero wagging the finger at like countries that are just destroying Uyghurs, and it's just very, very useless. It's becoming more and more useless by the day. Remember, we had the League of Nations. You know what happened to the League of Nations? It's gone because it became useless as well. And this is what's happening to the UN. It's just dominated by it's dominated by foes of freedom. Since Hamas was founded in 1987, it has fought Israel in 8 conflicts. None of these conflicts expanded to the broader region. Today, no regional power, including Iran, wants a broader Middle Eastern war. The test for Washington is to manage this war politically at home and diplomatically on the international stage. The U.S. needs to find creative ways to reassure both Israel and the Islamic world that it can be a neutral mediator in this conflict. If the U.S. does not do so, then it will provide an opening to Russia and China and will help Iran to make its case that the axis of resistance and armed struggle is the only viable path forward to its Palestinians. Yeah, I agree with that, Les. It does have to be balanced. Saudi Arabia needs to feel that they're getting the protection from America, which those rockets that were out of Yemen and the interception by the American ship proved that they're okay. They're like, okay, we hear your case, Saudi Arabia. We'll offer a little bit more. I think that's what's going on there. The Iranians have to be blocked in every which corner right now. All their proxy military. They need to, I believe, up these sanctions. They can't have their coffers up there. And then allowing everything else. What is that jingle? Someone outside. So that's basically that. Now let's go to the next one. Someone's outside. So that's from Alex Vatenka. He's the director of the Iran program in the Middle Eastern Institute. All right. All right, all you people, it's just me. Just give me a second here. Just looking up the Phoenix. I don't know where the Phoenix is. Basically, the Institute of oh, here it is. Ah, right, the top one. This is the early Phoenix. Right. All right. Top 5 headlines. This is a executive summary following President Biden's visit to Israel and the cancellation of his planned summit with the Arab leaders. The military situation in Gaza and Israel is increasingly unstable, with signs pointing to a potential ground invasion of Gaza and a protracted conflict despite international ceasefire efforts. That's not happening. I don't see how people can call for a ceasefire Are you? Oh, you're. What are you doing awake at this time? I don't know why they're calling for a ceasefire. When the Hamas is basically, the Israelis are. They say everyone said, okay, we agreed that they have the right to defend themselves. Okay, they had stated to defend themselves. That means getting rid of Hamas, and now they want a ceasefire. I know that there's a little bit maybe excessive destruction going on, but no one disagrees that Hamas needs to go. Everyone's like, yeah, Hamas can't. So how do you have a ceasefire and Hamas goes? It just makes no sense to people, to me at all. Well, they want more status quo so they can get more money and do this again to the people. No democracy. This is the thing. No democracy can handle their people getting massacred. That's why democracies have won, because we had despots for a long time. We had leaders that didn't care about their people, and they were like, well, the greater good. Our people are getting hurt, but we don't have to retaliate because it could be a lot worse for our people. Well, democracies don't put up with that shit. They don't. And the idea that they should is only despotic thinking. You can't do that in democracies, and get over it. Like thinking, oh, we'll just tell the people to take it. They were close to the border. Oh, it's okay. No, democracies, no. So stop this idea. There's only people from China or Russia where they can like silence their people can say these things. Oh, your people, 1,300 killed in the manner that they were, very intentionally. This is just astounding, and I think it needs to be shouted down, that type of speech, because that belongs in the despotic places of the communist country. It's like Stalin speaking. Oh, it's okay that we killed millions in Holodomor because there's a greater good. You never get elected in again. Never. Even people that have not even slightly affected, they feel it. That's why democracies won, because they raised the people, and the people have the power. They said, hey, we're not listening to this stuff anymore. Your baloney of, oh, it's only a few thousand people, and you get voted out. You're gone. Get the fuck out. But that is this opinion of these scholars, these people that work in like their ivory towers that'll never be dislodged, that they're thinking, well, they've been talking a little bit to too many despots. Too much. Wealthy despots are getting into the cracks are there. They're in the room. And now you're hearing it in my ears. And I think it's time the middle class to say, you know what, shut the up. It's enough. Enough of your idea that it's only a few thousand people that are losing their homes. Why is it a big deal about this housing crisis? We'll fix it. That's what we're having, and this is a direct result with all of this trade we're doing with nations. Direct result and appeasement. It rubs off like rust. And I know that I'm sounding hyperbolic because I know this channel is going down. I know what's happening. There's silence anyone who says anything that isn't about appeasement. And appeasement is good when you have someone who's at least willing to listen. And right now we're not. There's not willing to listen, and it's like, well, we'll just, if we don't say it, it won't happen. It's been getting worse by not saying anything. This is just a complete lack of political will, and it's not just here. Countries where humans are merely a number. That's exactly where we are, in a resource, and they are like that in many of these countries, and now it's here. Now it's like, well, you're just a number here. We'll get rid of you. We are just a number, but not in democracy. We're treated not that way. You shouldn't. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Is Hamas going to put up a ceasefire? This is the big joke. Will Hamas do a ceasefire? No. They may say we want a ceasefire, but then they'll attack at a time of their choosing. Well, how do you? 9 times. They've 9 different wars and fatahs they've claimed. After every ceasefire, they call another one. So people are expecting the Israelis to do it again. They're like, no, 9's enough. We're not going for a 10th. And if someone is declaring your death, that there's no negotiation with that. There can't be a negotiation with it. But if they give your right to exist, well then there's work you can do. But China has declared war on us, on us economically. Now it's not a kinetic war, but economically they've declared war on us. Now we don't have politicians that want to fight it. They're just gonna be like, well, it could get worse. Oh, fucking rights, it's gonna get worse unless you do something about it. Like Governor Huckabee is fighting back against. It's like the first time you're hearing a governor that's like, no, they're stealing our stuff. We know they're stealing our stuff, and then they're using it against us. Like, it's only hurting us, right? But what are we gonna do? We have to get the vote out. We need to, first of all, this is my first number one is there's too many politicians that are generational politicians. It's like, look at their names. Look at the names of this politician and that politician. They're like, oh yeah, my dad was a politician. I'm a politician. That's monarchy. It's slipping towards monarchy. I don't agree with it. I think that's when you have problems. You can't, because someone else has it. And some of them obviously will get through, like RFK. RFK is one that I like him. I like his political, his political stance and everything like that. He's one, and never mind that he's a Kennedy. Kennedy's a nice thing, but most of them, there's many in the background. They're just political. It's a political mash, and they really don't care about the system. If we haven't been improving, do we need to have a little bit of change in political diapers? Yes, but that's how democracy is. But what happened is they can hide. And now there's name changing. It's definitely a problem in this country, in Canada. In the States, less so, but it still is. It's a problem. You need to change the political leadership, or else you get more of the same and it gets worse. It just happened. This is why democracies are beautiful, because they can phoenix and reinvent themselves, whereas monarchies can't. They just get stuck in a rut of thinking, and they can't see outside of their own ditch. This happens so many times, and then another monarchy crushes them that doesn't have those. But we can do this with a democracy without having to have a war. But whatever, it's definitely a problem. Iran's role is becoming more overt, not only influencing the conflict, but also in targeting U.S. forces in Syria through drone strikes, adding to the complexity. Iranian media falsely accused the U.S. of orchestrating a recent attack on this. They said that the U.S. orchestrated the recent hospital attack in Gaza. The other countries in the region are in a state of upheaval, largely advocating for an immediate ceasefire, humanitarian aid access to Gaza, and a two-state solution. Despite increased warnings over the past 3 years about Iran's intentions toward Israel and the U.S. interests, the current situation appears to be initial consequences of American policy of withdrawal and isolation from the Middle East. Yeah, well, it definitely is, and no one has been able to withstand the Iranians since the Americans pulled out. It's just the two pillars isn't balanced enough. Top 5 headlines of the Phoenix here. The pro-Iranian militia drones attack Al-Tam's base in Syria border. Israeli defense minister message to soldiers, Gaza shoot from within. Soon. Gaza soon from within. I don't know what that means, but we'll get into this. Iran accuses U.S. of orchestrating fatal strike on Gaza hospital. Jordan and Egypt reject forced Palestinian displacement and call for a ceasefire. UN sanctions on Iran missile program expire, raising global concerns. Mm-hmm. So we're definitely in a problem. Well, there's no one really here. So. Oh. I mean, a lot of the time. Refusing to acknowledge. Yeah, well, this is what's happening. And what is real knowledge? There's definitely a lot of baloney around, like finger pointing. Oh, what's happening in America right now? I believe we have a psychologist epidemic. We have too many psychologists with a 100 psi finger walking around and accusing everyone of this and of that. And that's just creating a divisions and makes them bigger in our society. Oh, they're bad because of this, and they're bad because of this, and LGBT. There's and this, I believe, is a symptom of the psychology there's just too many psychologists around and too many people that believe that psychologist isn't pseudoscience. It's the biggest pseudoscience of them all. If you can't predict anything in any manner, if you can't find who the next whatever bad person is, like psycho this and that, well then but you better not be so freaking sure of yourself. But watch a psychologist show. They're very, 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 very sure of themselves. That's how they get people to pay them. How do you get someone to give you money if you're like, well, we're not really sure about this person's psychological profile? No one's going to give them money. But if they sound assured and this is the problem with people, that's just about propaganda. It's the same idea, and it's their marketing. Remember that every psychologist is marketing their thing. I think that they need a real step back, and AI is going to really take them down a notch. AI is the biggest predictor, is going to be, because it can take anecdotal stuff like that, where we have to have a psychologist or someone who's already into the field. They're the ones researching themselves. AI will be a little bit more unobjective, and that's where it is, because this is basically, we're in a world of everyone feels better because they can give 100 psi finger to another person, and social media makes it feel good because you don't get repercussions for giving someone a blast of shh, right? You heard it here, and I'll give them a blast of shh. It's actually it's what it is it's, the dragon eating its tail, because the middle class are doing it to themselves. And and this LGBT person with pink hair, it's not my enemy. It's like, what's your income? You're on the same boat, but that's how this division, and that's what's going on. So I think every time you want to get mad at someone for saying something completely stupid, I just think I probably say something completely stupid on the other end of the spectrum. They're not stupid. They're deluded as me. But we're in a place right now where I think it's a psychological nightmare, that we believe we understand people, and people are dynamic. People, like, look how many people that are like down and out and then to the top of the world. There's so many of them. Well, psychologists can't predict that. How could they predict any of that? They haven't been able to predict any of this behavior, but they're sure about what their opinions. The mind is a dynamic thing, and the idea that you know it and you can just label someone for life is silly. The mind's a muscle, right? So if you work out your arm muscle, what happens? It looks good, obviously. It looks like flab, but you work it out, it's like, ooh, it looks good. Well, the mind is the same thing, but this condemning someone for life is not. It is more exciting than saying, well, if the person works on it, they can come out of the rut. But there's an idea of condemnation against people, and it makes people feel better when your shit's going down. It makes people feel better that, oh, someone's worse off. Look at how crazy they're. And that's what's happening. And it's basically, we need to start looking at our betters, which people that are called our betters, and instead of looking at the idiot on the other end of the scale, the culture wars. It's just helping our betters, and they're not our betters. What titles? Oh wow! Well, these titles definitely tell me it has started. What started? Oh yeah, and then call toxic masculinity to any male, and then we'll eliminate the if we get the population that's most likely to um, serve their nation for honor, and that get them on drugs. easier to control. You know how you control cows? You control the male, and I'm not saying that males are in control of women. It's definitely, we're much more dynamic than that. But you control the strong people of society, and there's women that are strong people of society, and they've been taken by the reins to hate men. There's strong women naturally, and this toxic masculinity thingy and feminism. It's just taking them, and they would be the people that are fighting for the fighting for the same things at the minute, but they've been separated and now they fight each other. That's why I'm not mad at feminists. They're just as deluded as me, and I'm not anti-woman in any shape, way, or form, or what don't know, they call misogynist. I don't feel it. But the idea is to push me into hating the feminist. Well, I don't. She's just I met a few of them I know the past 30s, very successful, and they're just not happy either. They've been sold the Kool-Aid, and I've been sold the other Kool-Aid, but we're both on the Kool-Aid. So this is that's my opinion. Me and the one person, Remy. Coffee. Biden's visit to Israel was mixed achievement and regional tensions. The U.S. president's visit aimed to prevent further escalation in Israel conflict. Tensions persist. The visit reinforced the U.S. support for Israel and secured humanitarian aid access to Gaza. However, it highlighted challenges in managing regional dynamics, particularly after the Baptist hospital incident. All right, Arabic media second resignation of the U.S. State Department over Gaza. Sky News Arabia and other Arabic media outlets reported of a resignation of Laura Friedman, a U.S. State Department official, in protest against U.S. Gaza war policy. So Josh Ball, director of Congress, so someone resigned saying that they don't agree. Surprise, America's getting divided. We should hire more psychologists. Psychologists will figure it out. They're fucking lost. I prefer that people who can't predict something with 100% certainty talk as such, but we will never get that. These are people. Psychologists have been elevated too much in our society, and I think they're a problem. And we all know who I'm talking on both sides. This pointing of the finger as if the other person, they're just a middle class person who's been, sold a bill of goods. And a nice, calm conversation can change attitudes, but a 100 psi finger can just make more problems. Lieutenant General Michael Karelia, commander of the U.S. Central Command, paid a visit to Egypt and met with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. During their meeting, they reaffirmed their commitment to strengthening and strategic partnership between Egypt and the United States, with a focus on military and security cooperation. So, the late general of the Central Command, it seems like that part is okay. The U.S. informs Turkey of aircraft carrier deployment for civilian evacuation near Israel. U.S. officials have informed Turkish counterparts that the deployment of 2 aircraft carriers near Israel on the eastern Mediterranean. The purpose of this deployment is for potential civilian evacuation. This move is prompted by a surprise attack by the Hamas on Israel. The U.S. clarified that the deployment aims to support non-combat operations and deterrence. And is saying that Turkish President Erdogan criticized the U.S. for this action, warning it could lead to serious massacres in Gaza and disrupt Turkish peacekeeping efforts in the region. There's nothing about... Oh, okay, here we go. A commander's family was targeted. National Security Commander Jihad Muhsin and his family, his home was targeted. Israel responds to rocket attacks from Hezbollah. So Israel's security forces retaliated against rocket attacks from southern Lebanon. Approximately 30 rockets were fired into Israel. 30 rockets, resulting in rocket impacts in Kiryat Shmona and 2 reported injuries. Both Hezbollah and Hamas claim responsibility for the rocket barrages, escalating tensions. According to the Jerusalem Post, Israel defense minister's message to soldiers: Gaza soon from within. So Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant remarks to infantry soldiers on the Gaza's border suggest an impending ground invasion of the Palestinian enclave. So he He just did his, so quote, "You see Gaza now from afar, and soon you will see it from within." Oh, that's what he's saying. So land, sea, and air attack is escalating it. So explosions in Tulkarm injuries 10 soldiers. So Al-Quds brigades claim responsibility. LQUDS. An explosion in Tulkarm left 10 Israeli soldiers injured, with one in serious condition. The Al-Quds brigade claimed responsibility for ambushing the soldiers. Israeli forces declared the Nur Shams camp in Tulkarm a closed military zone. Over the past 24 hours, confrontations in the West Bank have led to the death of 6 Palestinians. While in Tulkarm, a young man died after Israeli forces prevented his father from treating him, resulting in his father also being wounded. So British Prime Minister Sunak, he stands with Israel. He just flew in there. So we've had France, Germany, now the UK, and of course Biden have all done their tour. Canada's not going to go because they're dropping our budget, the military budget. What are we going to do? Wag our finger? A joint press conference. So he did a joint press conferences, and Sunak backs Israel's right to self-defense, emphasizing cooperation for humanitarian aid and hostages, right? Releasing Gaza while acknowledging Palestinian suffering due to Hamas's actions. Hamas accused of using North Korean weapons in attack. A report by the Associated Press suggests that Hamas utilized North Korean weaponry in its October attack. So the Associated Press they got it wrong with the hospital, it seems, and now they're getting it right with North Korean weaponry. North Korea denied it. Evidence includes video footage and captures arms analyzed by experts revealing the use of North Korean F-7 rocket shells. The findings raise concern about illicit arms shipments and North Korea's support for Palestinian militant groups. So, the accesses are out. Now, we know who the belligerents are. North Korea is one of them. China is their, they do their bidding. So, the strings are together, but no one is saying it except yayas like me, which is maddening. Because why? Because wealthy people have their money in those factories in those countries, and they don't want to lose their money and their investments. There's a lot of big factories that are still building over there, and they can't have them losing money, these investor classes that made a big, big mistake and not caring about our humanity, but caring about their money. And this is the bottom line. I think that we need a little bit more, but it doesn't matter. They're just going to silence people like me. They're going to silence it, and the money people are they already won. And I don't see it really getting any better. I honestly don't. It's just really not gonna. That's why I honestly would like just to join the military and just sign out, because we don't have a chance at getting back to the blue collar life of the 50s and stuff like that with an inclusive society. No, not when we have an investor class that's running our politicians by the nose every which way. And all they do is they do a baloney. Oh, we'll give you a grocery rebate. Give you $100, shut up. While giving billions of dollars to wealthy people. It's just try to get a government grant. You need a lawyer. So if you want to get a government grant to open a business or to do this and that they have offered to you, you already have to be wealthy enough to be able to fill the grant out properly. This is how it's working in Canada. And so it's just making the divide larger. And there's no one saying it. And our politicians will shut down anyone who has any sense. The ones that have a little bit less sense, or they don't really see the atrocity, what they're doing, they'll be elevated. If you talk about stupid shit, oh, cocaine on the plane. There's no freaking cocaine. If that's what you're about, you'll get elevated. But if you're saying about to the elites that they're obviously not working for our best interest and don't hate the left person with pink hair who's struggling to pay their bills, hate the person who's their political leader, you'll be gone. You'll be gone. And the C11 now they can call these social media companies on you, and the social media companies are already so biased and out to lunch. It's a very, very bad place. And this is it. This is it. I don't. I honestly am feeling it that we're not going to get it back, and we're losing every day. IDF presents evidence of Islamic Jihad's role. So Iran accused of U.S. orchestrating fatal strike on the Gaza Strip. So the UN, okay, this one. The UN sanctions on Iran's missile program expired, raising global concerns. Well, the UN is completely useless as it is. UN sanctions aimed at constraining Iran's missile and drone programs have expired. Well, they're lowering their drone programs, but there's drones freaking everywhere. There's drones, Iranian-made drones in Ukraine, Iranian-made drones in that are being used against the Israelis, Iranian-made drones that are over in North Korea. They're everywhere. So what containing did they do? What did they just wag a finger at Iran and say, hey, no more, don't sell anymore? And then they found chips that were made in the West in some of these things. So it's like they were, allowing the UN sanctions aimed at constraining Iran's missile and drone programs have expired, allowing Iran to sell these technologies and buy related components. While the E3 European parties maintain their sanctions, the U.S. and E3 have not reinstated UN sanctions. The U.S. imposed new sanctions and issued advisories to limit Iran's programs. The lapse could embolden Iran and its allies, including Russia, in global conflicts. No, we have an outstanding political leadership. This is Okay, the Iran urges IOC team to assess Gaza crisis and calls for sanctions. So they're calling for sanctions. Pro-Iranian militia drones. Oh, look at this. In Syria. This is in Syria. Pro-Iranian militia drones attack Al-Tanf base on the Syrian border. Pro-Iranian militias launched a second drone attack on the Al-Tanf base located in the Syria-Iraqi-Jordanian border, affiliated with the International Coalition Forces. 3 Iranian militia drones targeted the base, leading to the downing of 2 drones and causing material damage. Another report mentioned Iraqi Hezbollah brigades launching drones at the base and firing missiles at an American military facility in a Kanako oil region near Deir ez-Zor. So, the drones are ever. There's their drones are attacking American bases, Iranian, and what are we doing? Mm-hmm. France. All right, Israeli warplanes strike Syrian army position in Quneitra. Israel Air Force conducted a dawn raid on the Syrian army site in Quneitra, causing material damage but no immediate reports of casualties. This result follows a recent Israeli airstrike on Aleppo airport, which left 5 wounded. The strikes coincide with heightened Israeli activity in southern Lebanon. So France issues international arrest warrants for Macron. Everyone knows I like the yellow vest. I love to make fun of Macron. He's got a lot of good ammo on him as a politician and have fun against. But Macron right now is the number one, I think, in Europe. He's the one that Sunak is. I'm surprising even Sunak isn't. I like Sunak, but number one Macron right now. He said basically, if you want to celebrate the atrocities of Hamas, arrested. You're gonna find. It's a proper country, so you don't arrest the people for that. You find them. It's like, yeah, you want to do that? Fine you, right? This to me, and basically he called an end to it. So he did it properly. He didn't have it so police have to detain people for that kind of injustice. It is he made it a law. So that kind of injustice, but you have to pay a fine. You know what I mean? You're not getting away with it without a little bit of a hit. And I think it's balanced, right? Pay your fine, say your shit, right? And then they can probably hit you again if you want to continue. But basically, I think he in that part, you have to quell this stuff, or else it's getting worse. That's what happened. We have all these universities coming up with these baloney ideas, and they're not There's no one pushing back against them. So they just start cocking more craziness. So what did Voltaire say? If I can get you to believe in absurdities, I can make you commit atrocities. And that's the first thing. And they're making people believe in absurdities. Absurdities every which way. I think the right is too, with the psychology of everything. Everyone's this and all that. They're absurd. Absurd people are dynamic, and we're like a muscle. Sometimes you're weak, sometimes you're strong, and the proper exercises, and you can be brilliant. Everyone with a proper workout can be Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, it may take years, decade, but it can happen with your brain as well as your muscle. But there's an idea that we can condemn someone for life. If they're in a rut, they may be that way their whole life. But if you're given the right course, you can work your way out of it. This is the thing that side. And then there's the left that everybody, every stupid idea in your head is the fact. If you believe it, it is true. Now, that's another absurdity. Both of them are absurdities. And what's going to happen? Both sides, the right and the left, are going to get people to do atrocities. Like, personally, storming the parliament. I mean, storming the January 6th, storming that is ridiculous. Why, and most of the people, after they stormed it, were good, I think, good patriot-loving people. They looked around. It was like a tour guide, right? But the storming of it itself is an atrocity. And that's because they believed that it was stolen, and that is where he went wrong. And he needs to be quiet about that personally, and that's my opinion of it, though I agree that the election was stolen, but it was stolen by media companies and all these other companies. It wasn't stolen from they politicians on the left. They got the companies against you. That's awful, but it wasn't a political thing. It was the companies, my opinion. And to storm the Capitol, I know someone's like, "Are you going to go?" I'm like, "No." Storm. I believe in our democracies. Well, I do not want to see it stormed. I want to yell at the walls, but the idea of that. So the right went too far there, and I wish he would say he went too far by putting violence against our own nations. And America is the nation, is the fucking pillar, the only thing we got. If America is a piece of shit, where else is we going to go to? Well, what else are we going to use as a model? Some old Westminster model, which Canada is? No, thank you. It's the newest model, and the best model to go by is the American. And what happened? Companies got together, and they didn't want Trump. And they hid things. He needed to go after the companies that were helping the Democratic Party, and they really shouldn't have been, but they were, not the Democratic Party, not the institutions. And you see it. Most of the people were like, it was a joke. I think the Democrats are taking it much more harshly because of what could happen the next time. I think what they're trying to do is stop it from happening again, because the next time could be a hell of a lot worse. You can't do atrocities on your own nation, memes and stuff like that, and rhetoric and protest. Yeah, but a protest that went into the building, like, there was no way it would have been a real takeover. But maybe the next time, right? No atrocities, no absurdities. It's my opinion. So I'm not a big fan of protests because you get the hive mind. Hive mind is just ridiculous. And I know everyone's like, well, fuck you. You know what? That's my opinion. You can have yours. The idea that just having all of this atrocities done to your own nation because you're right, you need to give your head a shake. Don't hit your own nation. But we have that right now. We have that from both sides that want to destroy the nation. And it's working. So France issues international arrest warrants for former Syrian army officials. French judicial authorities have issued international arrest warrants for 4 former senior officials in the Syrian army suspected of involvement in a 2017 bombing in Daraa that resulted in the death of a French-Syrian civilian. Among those targeted is former Defense Minister Fan Jazim al-Frij, accused of complicity in an attack against the civilian population considered a war crime. France has taken steps to hold the perpetrators of violations in Syria accountable, including referring documents related to the Al Tandabon neighborhood massacre and the National Anti-Terrorism Prosecutor's Office for everything. So Macron and their army are actually being very proactive about what's going on. I believe that they're tightening up their ship, and France is a very large for compared to the rest of Europe population. From they had a lot of immigration, a lot of them went there, and they were open, and now I think they're dealing with it. So Turkish defense minister discusses regional developments with Iranian chief of staff. According to a statement of the Turkish Ministry of Defense, Defense Minister Hulusi Akar held a phone call with Iranian chief of staff Mohammed Bagher on Thursday. During the call, they discovered the latest regional developments as well as issues related to security, defense, and regional matters. So UK Foreign Ministry visited Turkey, Egypt, and Qatar. Turkish manufacturers secured $211 million armored vehicle deal with Estonia. Now, what happened with Estonia recently? Why is Estonia all worried about? They're all in and up in arms. They're close to the Ukraine, the Baltic states, right? Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, they're in that on the nice coast. Well, they have a pipeline, critical infrastructure. It was just blown. They popped a leak, and there's believed it was sabotage. There's an investigation going on. That's considered critical infrastructure, and that would be, if it was, there's reports from journalists, we don't know if it's true, that there was a Russian ship in the area. And there's NATO is investigating it right now. So that could be an act of war, and NATO's investigating it. So we have to wait. I have zero opinion until NATO finalizes the report. It's serious. Romania is very up in arms. If you heard the Romanian people there's a river where they're getting ships, and some drones landed in Romania after they were shot down. So the Romanian people are getting very upset and concerned about it expanding their NATO nation. The spillovers. The chances of spillover are pretty freaking big. Everyone's like, well, calm. If we don't talk it won't happen. Well, we've done this. We've gone this route for so many years, and they're just expanding every which way. So they're 200. Turkey, Otokar, and Nural Makina have signed a contract with Estonia, supplying 230 army vehicles worth approximately $211 million. The contract includes both 4x4 and 6x6 vehicles for Estonia security forces, as well as 4-wheeled armored vehicles for the Explosive Ordnance Disposal Center of the Estonia Rescue Board. The deal strengthens defense ties between Turkey and Estonia, with both countries emphasizing the importance of cooperation in the defense industry. The vehicles supplied will enhance Estonia's army's capability and regional security. Iraqi parliament receives request to expel American ambassador over Gaza crisis. So the Iraqi parliament, Representative Ala al-Rikabi, supported by the House of Representative members, has submitted a parliamentary request for the expulsion of the American ambassador from Iraq. The move is in protest against perceived heinous crimes by the Zionist entity in Gaza. The request labels the ambassador as unwelcome. So they're kicking out the American ambassador. So al-Sadr warns against transferring Palestinians to Anbar. Muqtada al-Sadr, leader of the Sadrist movement, cautions against what he referred to as malicious idea of relocating Gazans to Iraq, particularly Anbar Governorate. He rejected. Okay. Gulf stock markets decline amid Israel-Gaza conflict. So this is of Yemen here. The Gulf stock markets face an early trading losses impacted in declines of Elm Digital Solutions Company and the National Bank of Saudi Arabia shares. Meanwhile, the Dubai index fell by 6.7%, primarily due to drops in the MR properties and Salik shares. So Egypt and Morocco, they're not having. Now the last tier is Lebanon. So there wasn't. I'm surprised that there wasn't anything about the missiles that the American ship that came out of Yemen, and they were intercepted. That was from a Pentagon report that I seen. So it happened. Lebanon, escalating clashes in southern Lebanon prompt international evacuations. Tensions rise as Israel and Hezbollah they're exchanging fire near the Lebanon-Israel border. Both sides call casualties and infrastructure damage. Amid growing international concern, several countries, including the U.S., urge their citizens to leave Lebanon. So they're saying, get out, it's time. This is not going up. The increases have been like 500% increases of thing. Israel also begins evacuating its northern border towns. So they're preparing. So they're just evacuating their people, which is it's good. At least And the problem is, I know a lot of people are very stubborn, and they're like, well, I don't want to leave. This is my land. But you have to sometimes force people to leave for their own safety and for a temporary, right? And I know I would be one of those stubborn, I would be. And it would be like, okay, since you're pointing a gun at me and telling me to leave, I'll go for my own safety. Including the U.S., urged their citizens to leave Lebanon. Israel begins evacuation of the northern bordering towns. The clashes are the most severe in years, intensifying since the Hamas attack earlier this month. So the U.S. has privately urged to avoid war with Hezbollah, as they privately urged Hezbollah. The Biden administration has privately advised Israel against initiating military campaigns against Hezbollah to prevent the ongoing Gaza conflict from spreading. Washington expressed a concern and urged caution in responding to Hezbollah's actions, stating that the U.S. would protect its interests if necessary. So basically they're saying, keep it down. Do not expand. Please keep this. Keep your cool head. So that's where we're at with that. Here, I'm just talking to myself. I did a 2-hour chat. Later, Dugay. Who's this? Like Wef. What's Wef? Oh, there's 0 on the list, but good morning, my pronouns. Human unbehaving work towards morality. Simply stop with lies. Okay. They have a few thousand ballistic, 150,000 the Hezbollah have. Oh. They have a few thousand ballistic missiles themselves, but they are as gutless as Hezbollah when it comes to American air power, so do not fret. Jordan may want to watch his back. Syria is already in ruins and looks... Well, I think Jordan is... not to worry about Jordan. I think Jordan is okay, and they won't attack at all. I believe that they are a little bit of bluster because their people are, but I don't see Jordan at all. Like Wef, who fucked that? The G is the prize. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm not sure. I don't know what you're saying. Iranian-backed Iraqi groups and Houthis are behaving as if the United States has crossed their... This is the Institute of Study of War. Iranian-backed Iraqi groups and Houthis are behaving as if the United States has crossed their stated red lines and intervening in the war to support Israel. Iranian-backed Iraqi militia Kataib Hezbollah military spokesperson said that the United States is, quote, essential partner in killing Gazans and must bear the consequences, end quote. The KH military spokesperson also said the United States is, quote, aware of the capabilities of the Iraqi resistance and, end quote, and that if Iraqi resistance can target anywhere in Iraq. Other axis of resistance factions have also expressed the risk of October 7th. The Houthi movement's supreme leader said on October 10th that his forces would respond to missiles and drones if the United States intervened in the conflict. So the Houthi movement Al-Qassam Brigade's branch in Lebanon said that on October 19th that its militias fired 30 rockets at western Israel, recording. So the Institute of Study of War recorded rocket barrages fired toward both western and eastern Israel. However, the IDF disclosed that the LH gave the Al-Qassam Brigades permission to fire the rockets from Lebanon. This report is consistent with the Institute of Study of War's previous assessment that LH probably approves of the attacks of southern Lebanon into Israel, given the extent to which the LH controls southern Lebanon. Iranian-backed militias in Syria conduct 3 attacks using one-way drones and rockets against U.S. military positions in Iraq and Syria, marking the second consecutive day of such attacks targeting U.S. forces in the Middle East. The Islamic Resistance of Iraq fired 3 drones targeting the Al-Tanf garrison, Syria, on the 3-way drones targeting Conoco mission and 3 one-way drones targeting Conoco mission support site. Iranian-backed Iraqi militias also launched an unspecified number of rockets targeting U.S. forces at Ain al-Assad Air Base. So, key takeaways: Palestinian militias continued indirect fire, right? Hamas is also trying to attack natural gas rigs in the Mediterranean Sea. So that's been happened. They've been trying to attack natural gas rigs, oil. Clashes between the Palestinian militants and the Israeli forces in the West Bank seem to be increasing today. Hamas called for protests in support of Gaza Strip across all cities and towns in the West Bank. Effort to expand the fighting, to the West Bank. They're trying to expand it to the West Bank. So the Institute of Study of War recorded 13 attacks from Lebanon into Israeli territory, which is creating opportunities for further attacks into Israel. 13 attacks. So LH allowing Palestinian militias to continue attacks from southern Lebanon into Israel. So Iranian-backed Iraqi militants in Syria conducted 3 attacks using one-way drones and rockets against U.S. military positions in Iraq and Syria, marking a second consecutive day of such attacks targeting U.S. forces. So 2 days in a row. These proxy groups of Iran, right? Obviously, they're all proxy groups of Iran. They're hitting American soldiers, and there hasn't been a response yet. Just duck and cover, I guess. Iranian Armed Forces General Staff Chief Major General Mohammad Bagheri held separate phone calls with his Russian and Qatari counterparts to discuss the Israel-Hamas war. We're losing. And our elites got us fighting each other.